Guys, I'm Angie Bagwell, and I am a counselor and Reiki energy healer, and a truther. And so, what that is I help people heal from trauma. I'm a trauma survivor as well. I am a survivor of ritual abuse and trafficking, and I'm also adopted out of the foster care system. So, yeah, I've had a lot of trauma in my life, which, led me into the field of counseling. I wanted to help other people like me. And counseling came pretty naturally to me. I was always kind of the natural counselor in my family and with my friends. And so it seemed to be the right fit, and since what I've been through, I can definitely relate to what my clients are going through or have gone through. And so, yeah, I wanted to share a little bit today about myself, the work I'm doing, and just invite you, if it calls to you, or if you think it sounds like it would be something of interest, that you can join my community. So, first of all, I should probably explain this tiara because it's kind of silly, isn't it? Wearing a tiara. That's kind of part of my brand, but it's also how it started off. I wore a tiara for my wedding. So I've been married twice. So I was in my first marriage for several years, and that ended up not working out. And so I met my second husband a few years after that, and I wore a tiara for our wedding. And then we kind of would use it as a joke, like we dare each other, me and my husband, hey, I dare you to wear the tiara to Walmart. And so sometimes I did. Um, and then, after we were married and, the joke, I guess, went away, I went through a process. The healing process is quite, it's a lifelong journey. We're always in the process of healing, especially trauma survivors. And so I went through a period a few years ago where I started to get a lot more memories come through, and recovering old memories, and having them come through in my dreams, and just having certain realizations about, like, how horrible, the abuse was. And so, anyway, when you go through that, of course, it's very difficult. You're anxious all the time. I don't know if you can notice I'm moving around a lot. That's just, that's a side effect of trauma. So anyway, the other aspect is that your self-esteem is like zero almost. You are treated like garbage, by your abusers, told that you're nothing. And they take so much from you that you feel like you're nothing. And so it started off when I was using it kind of as a tool, because I like to do kind of experiments, to work on my mental health. And anyway, it started off as something to lift my self-esteem. And so sometimes I wear it like to the grocery store or to the post office or something. And I remember I was with my son, and I think he was like, he could have been 15 or 16. And he had his friends with us, and we're at, someplace getting food. And I asked him, are you, embarrassed that I'm wearing this? And he said, no, I just think you're a person who wears a tiara. So he wasn't embarrassed, but I thought it was kind of funny. When I was out one time, I would also often get comments, is it your birthday, or something, and so I would say different things, like I'd say no, and nothing else. Or one person asked me, and I said, oh, I'm, practicing my good self-esteem. And she goes, good for you, honey. So it was really pretty funny. And it does, the other thing is it makes people smile, and that I love. So that's a really good thing. So anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about going through the awakening process. And I don't know if you're familiar with what that is, but it's really a spiritual experience. And it's a process of uncovering the layers of old beliefs and um, false beliefs, and really uncovering what the truth is. And so I started going through that a few years ago also. And well, probably more than a few years ago when it started. The awakening process is a process too. Sometimes people talk about it like, well, you wake up and you can never go back, which is true. You cannot, but it's a process. You peel off more layers. And during this, I started to listen to some different podcasts, watch some different like documentaries, and yeah, different things like that about our society, and about the corruption, how it's in every system. And being a counselor for so many years in private practice, I live in a small rural community, and I've seen it in every system. I've seen corruption. And when I worked with kids in foster care, and they would tell me about, abuse by their foster parents, and I would turn, of course, report it, and watch how they did nothing, and said the abuse was unfounded, the allegation was unfounded, and yeah, and then they're still allowed to, keep being a foster parent and abuse kids. And so, yeah, that was very disheartening. And then, and some of the kids that I worked with, like, they were pretty much systemically abused, some even were sexually assaulted at school, and nothing was done, and they were even blamed for it. Blaming the victim is what you call it. And so it was very, very, hard to stay positive in all that. And that, along with my own, trauma history and my memories coming up. I mean, I did go through a period where I had to be hospitalized on a couple of different occasions because it was just too much, you know. And so I'm smiling right now because I'm so happy to be on the other side of that, and also to hear the good news that's happening, and some of that is like these human trafficking rings are getting busted, and people are being held accountable. And most importantly, those kids and those women, it's usually women and kids that are in, are the victims of this. They're being rescued, and so we are going to have when they get physically healed, we're going to have a big need, to help these people, because they're going to need a lot of therapeutic support. So anyway, I want to just share with you some of the sources, some of the podcasts that I listen to who report the truth. And one of them that I like is Santa Surfing Beach Broadcast, Woke Society's iPod, which is short for In Pursuit of Truth, David Nino Rodriguez, Charlie Ward, and many others. There's 2 documentaries that I will mention so that you can go watch them if you want to learn more about, about what's really gone on in our society, in our world, because it's not just the United States, it's all around the world. All of these elites that control everything are, intermingled and interrelated, and work, they work together. So anyway, some of those documentaries, one is Out of Shadows, and I know one of the creator's name is Mike Smith, and then the other name, I'm trying to remember her name, it's Um, anyway, I'll remember in a few minutes. That happens sometimes, probably due to, just getting older and, yeah, that kind of thing. So, also, when you have trauma brain, sometimes that can happen too. Focus and concentration can be tough. Lots of times people will hop from one topic to the other. So, yeah. But going through the process of truth finding, is both, it can bring on lots of emotions, like, of course, excitement, right? You hear about the good news about people getting rescued from these horrifying situations. And it can be overwhelming and triggering. And for me, I don't like to hear any of the details of what people go through because it is so horrifying. I have some spiritual gifts, and when this was a couple years ago, I had a dream about abuse, a child being abused, and it was just awful, So, yeah, if you're a survivor, I would definitely limit your time on media and listen to your body. Uh, Anxiety is there's physical part and the mental part, but when you feel your chest tightening or your heart beating fast or you having a hard time breathing, it's time to unplug and take a break and make sure that you're creating balance in your life. Go for a walk. I like to garden. Spending time with your loved ones. I mean, that's really what's most important, right? But that balance is really, really important. And the other thing that's important is that you have like-minded community. And so that's why I created the support group. And I guess it's not really a support group, it's a support community, because it's not therapy. Even though I'm a therapist, I will be, bringing in and sharing tools in the group, but it is more of a network, and a place to just, share your stories, get ideas from other people, support one another along, our healing journeys, and kind of get acclimated to the new earth, because we are going through some huge changes on this planet. And one of my visions that I've had, this was probably 2 years ago also. I think this all started about 2017, which is kind of funny because I think it was October 2017, Q started posting. And Q is somebody who it's not one person, it's like a group of people. And I don't know if they're associated with the military, I think, but they're anonymous anyways. But Q drops hints kind of about what's to come, and a lot of those things that he's posted, if you can follow him on Twitter if you'd like, they actually end up happening. They come true, and it's usually, maybe a year in the future or something. I'm not an expert on Q, but that's something you can follow. And so, I wanted to mention too another documentary that you can look at. It's called Follow the Cabal. That's very, very eye-opening about the corruption that's gone on in our nation, and your eyes will be very opened. So, in the group, what we're going to do is, I'll have different topics of discussion, but it's mainly to support one another, share our stories. Like I said, I will share some coping skills. It's very important that you use your coping skills that you've learned. If you've been in therapy, if you haven't been in therapy, I think that's important to connect with a therapist. These are some really stressful times. There's this pandemic going on, which if you start to uncover the truth about that, and learn more about what's really going on with that, you'll find that, that maybe it's not really a pandemic. I just went to the grocery store, and they wouldn't let me in without a mask. And so I think I said something like, well, it makes me really anxious. I tried to use my PTSD as an excuse, and they just didn't want me to use that excuse. And so I kind of just put it on, and then when I got in the store, I scooted it down so off my nose so I could breathe. So anyway, yeah, these are some tough times, but the vision that I had, and now that I've talked so much, I'm thinking maybe I didn't finish that last thought. To That happens sometimes, but the thing that I wanted to share now, I'm thinking, what was it that I wanted to share? Yeah, that it does happen sometimes. But let me share about the group. So I'm on meetup.com, and it's meetup.com/survivor hyphen truther hyphen support hyphen group. And then I'll leave the link in the description so you can hear more about it then. And yeah, I could probably go on and talk for a long time, but I just wanted to give this little introduction. And so I look forward to connecting with you as a survivor, a fellow survivor, and yeah, and supporting us through this awakening, this great awakening that's going on in our world. And yeah, thanks for listening, and I look forward to talking with you and meeting you.